final. This is a big recap. We're gonna do the final 2 episodes because we just saw the season finale of Lovecraft Country. Man, just amazing. So we will, in justice, we will go back and recap last week's episode, and we'll bring up to this. But I will say, I love the way this ended. I love the way they kind of brought everything together. It was funny. My niece made the comment, said my mom is here as well. So it was me, my niece, and my mom were watching it. And we're just like watching the clock, like, oh my God, how much longer do we have left? Like, so like there's only an hour left of this. And so there's still a lot to unravel with that mentally, especially like the last 10 minutes. Cause I felt like I wasn't really, they covered a lot in like flashes, which they kind of have to leave you to fill in some details, but we'll get to that. I promise. So let's back up. Last week's episode, which I don't remember the name, so forgive me.
Rewind.
But
1921.
Okay. And which is important. I think one of the things that I really loved about this episode was, number one, it's to my knowledge, and to date that I've seen, it is only the second ever kind of TV or movie show to ever depict what happened in Tulsa. The other one was actually another HBO movie, which is The Watchmen.
Yeah.
Right up until Watchmen, the latest series they put out, I'd never seen anybody actually depict in any kind of theatrics, what happened in 1921, right? The riots that happened there. And so I thought that was, number one, just very powerful and awesome. And, I give, shout out to HBO for, kind of wanting to do this. Shout out to the writers who put that together. And so, this episode in Rewind of 1921, we see that Hippolyta's back. Dee has been cursed, and they're trying to figure out how to save Dee. So they go, obviously the person that they know that knows magic is Christina. So they meet up with Christina, but Christina says that, there's nothing she can do without the Book of Names. With Hippolyta now back and all her wisdom that she has gained. She figures out basically lets them know that, hey, look, we can do a Avengers Infinity War style time heist and go back in time to go and get the Book of Names, which I'll talk about interestingly because, and then we'll do it again when we get to the season finale, because it goes back to kind of the hypothesis we had a couple episodes ago when Hippolyta first kind of took her journey. That time is this, like, it's not in the way that we think. It's not like really linear. It's more of like locations that you can plot in different universes and things of that nature or whatever. And so I love that, right? So Hippolyta comes back, and I think it's so to the point of the show, and at the part where we're at, that, like, she comes back and nobody's just like, okay, Hippolyta's back. They knew she was missing. I mean, obviously they're used to the magic stuff now, but I'm just like, ain't nobody gonna talk about how, like, Hippolyta's back, and she knows like way more. She's just taking this stuff in strides, like, oh, no problem. We're just gonna rewind back. It's multiple universes. I'll get it fixed. We'll do this. I just would have been like, okay, hold up now. Number one, I'm glad you're back. Welcome. Thank you. We need to save your daughter. But what?
I think everybody.
Yeah, remember that Tick went through the portal too, and he had already had a conversation with Montrose and brought out the book of their family story, like all that stuff. So I think everybody was just primed to be like, oh, you're back, and
somebody
you're
else who
basically
knows
God,
stuff.
You're all knowing at this point. So we're good with that. We could use that right now.
Right. So, which, look, I loved it. It was awesome. We see them go back to the location where Tick and Hippolyta found, I'm just going to call it a little time machine. Hippolyta does her thing, fixes it, and then is able to connect herself to it to kind of power it, and then send them back to 1921. And
I finally, and I finally, and I won't say too much just in case you want to go in a certain order, and I finally get my like Montrose emotional, like, this is why I am me, and and just all of the scenes where he didn't even say a word. I was like, he don't want to go. He don't want to see it. He don't want to relive it. Yeah.
Yeah. And perfect segue, right? Because we as they get back to so when they go through the portal, like it's immediate that and again, shout out to these actors and their ability to pull out these emotions and all this stuff and just looking at their faces. I mean, it's immediate when Montrose gets there that he's like, I can't, like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be here. Like, I can't, like I know I need to be here, but like, you're just seeing this pain and all these things going through his eyes as he's looking at it. Right. And it was crazy to think that, you know, how are we, when you combine like his trauma that what he went through, right, to go back and live through that, but then also just the trauma of that, right? The other thing that I think is really solemn and just kind of powerful, this whole story, is that there weren't like the two reasons why this thing isn't talked about is, number one, there weren't survivors, right? Like when you go and you murder everybody, there's nobody there to tell the story. Right, the only people that are there to tell the story are the people who did it, and of course, they ain't gonna tell the story the way that it would go from their side or whatever. So again, and so I'm just thinking through this character is like, so he's witnessed this horrific event. It's been a part of, you know, what's, you know, driven and made most of his makeup as a man, you know, and all these things that kind of happen. So we see this, the rest of the episode kind of. It does lay hints for everything else that they kind of do finish out in the season finale. But to your point, Erica, we really get Montrose's story, right? Like we see them. They start out in this hotel. They end up going back to Montrose's house. So we see his father, beating him with the switch. And I don't know if it was this episode or another episode where Montrose was having these memories and he was hearing this moment, like we heard it as he was remembering it. And so then we see this moment, right, as he is, for those of us who have family that either in the South or had a authority figure that was in the South, the dreaded words of "go get the switch," right? That's like, you knew who he was talking is over. But so we're seeing him and what he kind of goes through, how it affects George. And then I always forget Tick's mom's name.
Dora. Jeremy always remembers.
Dora, yeah. And so we see this effect as this scene kind of plays out. And then we see, Tick and Letty and Montrose kind of observing this. And, Montrose is just done, right? He's frozen in this fear of having to relive this trauma. And so I don't know. I thought it was good to finally see all this. It kind of completed this side of this character to kind of give us this full understanding of, and I always look at things like this, like not to excuse any of his behavior, but now, you see the full picture, you understand, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, to me, that's always important is understanding somebody. So that way you can try to get from A to B, from their point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that human nature is such, I know that I always say to people in my life, we're all flawed. And I don't ever have a problem with someone who can say, yes, this is who I was. I admit and I own up to that, but here I am trying to be different. Like, right. I will be by somebody's side the whole way if I just know that they acknowledge. And I feel like we finally have come to a place where I feel like Montrose has acknowledged how he showed up in Tick's life and that it wasn't that great. And now Tick can see why, and they can just kind of move forward. So.
Yeah. Well, and one other thought that I came across in a Twitter thread that I saw actually, I think earlier today, matter of fact, the speaker put the whole episode in the terms of, imagine this was 9/11, only instead of everyone saying never forget, it's been completely erased from every mention, every history book possible. Right. But for Black Americans at the time, this was every bit 9/11, and nobody cared. Nobody wanted to remember. Nobody. Yeah. So to think about Montrose having to go back and relive that day all over again, like it just kind of puts into perspective kind of that side of his reluctance to go, along with all of the other demons that he was dealing with.
Well, and I was just going to say, I think we're like cutting out. Yeah. But, and just the history piece of it, like you were saying, as we started, Dave, we don't see these stories depicted in shows. We have not seen it depicted. And so I felt like we were Montrose too. Like I almost wonder if in the writer's room, we were getting the pause so that we could get ready to see it more fully, since we've never, my adulthood, Watchmen was the first time I heard of it, and so I know there were lots of people who were in that place.
So I was going to add two things too. We also have the aspect of, and I'm probably going to shift around a lot, guys, just because I have to move my leg. So forgive if I'm like moving and shifting. But we also have the aspect of the whole, you can't change anything.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So, right. So you have that they're dealing with, and which we'll get to in a second as we kind of get to, towards the end of this episode. But one thing that I have been seeing for a minute. Oh, says I'm having connection issues. Should be back. So it's been a very clear underlying theme, and I have been just kind of waiting and letting it build. But like this episode 9, and then this one, I think this was 10, just made it very, very clear. Like this entire show was a rallying cry, and really just call out to Black America, like you need to embrace what's there, right? But take back what's yours, right? Stand up, right? Come together and just fight and take back. And I don't I don't mean that in the like, yeah, we need to go burn down the streets. It's not like that, but it's just it's a very unifying like message of there are all these things that you can do to exist here and know that this is yours just like it is anybody else's.
Listen, right? I'm gonna say this, but we're gonna hold on to it for when we get to episode 10 for real. But what you're talking about, it's like when the great grandma in the fire, when Hannah is talking about how the fire was burning us down, but then I realized that we can actually take this. And for me, I was like, yeah, everybody that's saying Black folks are angry or we're angry and there's no place for anger. And I'm just like, so that was one for me, a nod. And there was another one that I can't even remember right now because I'm getting all just emotional. And then but the pull to the ancestors, like I was like, yes, like, so I don't, but I don't want to, I'm jumping a little bit.
So yeah, we'll definitely get to that because it's just, you can't, it's undeniable. Like you see it, and I'll talk about it more. All the little threads that I saw.
and the Eddie made over Christina. And the statement Eddie made over Christina.
Yeah. And it was beautifully written. All right. So we get to this point now where they have to, they're back in 1921. Montrose witnesses this scene of his father kind of beating him. They've got to go find the Book of Names, and so they need to split up and then Montrose kind of takes off. So they have to go find Montrose because they don't want him to go change anything. They're also at this point where they're like a couple of hours before the actual riot breaks out, and so they're kind of they have this race against time. They have to come to find the Book of Names. Montrose takes off. They got to go find Montrose, and so they decide to have to split up. So Tick goes to go find Montrose. Letty goes to go find the Book of Names. Which when I remember watching this episode, I'm like, why are you sending Letty like to go find the book of names, like she don't know none of these people, like, you know, but this gets answered later. But so they do split up to go and kind of handle this. So we'll start with Tick and Montrose first. Tick finds Montrose. He's in this alley. He's determined to go and change a specific event, because this is the event for him that is like, I think he calls it like one of the first sacrifices that he had to make to live the life that he wanted to live. And so, but it's also, to me, I saw like this first kind of central real trauma that changed like who he was, right? That hardened him into the person that he was. So they finds himself, it's this young man that I can't remember if he had a crush on, whatever, right? So they're young, he had a crush on him.
Love interest.
The young man knew that the young man, was it Thomas? Was that the young man's name?
Yeah.
Thomas, you know, obviously knew he was gay, and then Montrose was still fighting with it, obviously. So this was, you know, this was Montrose's, and I kind of felt like he wanted to not only change like the fact that he denied who he was and all this stuff or whatever, but he also wanted to save this young man's life. But I think it was like, I don't know, this whole setup of like denial, like it reminded me of a lot of things, like for all the Christian people don't, you know, scream out blasphemy, but the whole denial thing, right, reminds me of Peter and Jesus, like, you will deny me 3 times, like when the time comes. Like there's this whole scene is this setup of denying, because not only did he was denying himself, right, denying the fact of who he was, denying that, you know, that he, you know, could do all he could to save this boy or whatever. Right? It was just this big thing with denial with Montrose that I think kind of stemmed from all of this. And so we find the scene of those two talking, and Montrose is explaining to Tick what's going on. And as Montrose is remembered, this is when they're attacked, and the mysterious stranger comes out of nowhere to come save them. So they're watching this whole thing unfold. George and I was going to say Hippolyta, not Hippolyta, and Dora find them, the older past version, so the kid version themselves, come find them. All hell breaks loose. The riots are starting. They're starting to get beat, and Montrose is like, "Wait for it! You know, the mysterious man's going to come straight out of Harry Potter, right?" So we're sitting there watching. Tick goes forward, kicks a baseball bat.
So fun. I'm so sorry to be talking about people like losing their lives, but like the realization, like, oh, I get to go do this.
When he broke that first dude's jaw,
I couldn't even watch it.
Like, there was so much like righteous joy flooding through me. I'm like, that dude needs to get. Oh shoot! Like, that was rough, but beautiful.
Yeah, that whole realization, right? That, oh, okay, so this is what happens. Like, I'm the mysterious stranger, and I mean, yeah, he just comes in and goes to town with this bat. You know, gives him the signature saying that we've heard all series. You know, I got you, kid, right? Yeah. And so it was this. It was then for me that I started to like really connect to the deeper plot of everything that's going on, right? So, because to me that let me know that, well, that's how I knew that. Well, okay, if you're watching this by now, you should have seen it. That's how I knew that Tick wasn't gonna make it, right? Because it was just like, for whatever reason, for me, that just stood out to me. I was like, okay, so he's been this mysterious stranger all along. Like, there are these, we've seen that there's multiple universes and points and traveling through time and things of that nature. I was like, okay, so this is, Tick is the central point and connects us to all of this. I was like, so this makes sense to me, right? That Tick is, you know, whatever's going to happen, he is going to be central to this thing kind of going forward. So I kind of knew at that point, I was like, all right, so something's good going to happen. But I mean, like, I kind of knew at that point, I was like, all right, I think he's not going to make it out, but somehow he's connecting all these timelines and things of that nature.
I wasn't giving up on Tick until I saw him gone with my own 2 eyes.
Yeah. I had to accept it early, otherwise I would have never got through tonight's episode. Like, because if I didn't accept it, I'd have been pissed. So then we go to Letty's scene as she is trying to find the book. She ends up getting harassed by some white men. Technically his grandfather, comes out, kind of saves her or whatever. And then also, I don't know who the other man, the neighbor was. So the neighbor would have been, both of Tick's grandfathers, I guess, technically.
Dora.
Yeah.
Dora.
Yeah, both of Tick's grandfathers stepped up and saved Letty.
Yeah, because remember, right after he beat Montrose, Dora's dad comes outside.
Yeah.
Yep. She comes out like whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So they usher her inside, say, "Hey, what's going on? What happened?" And she says that they were harassing her, and then now she's struggling with, should I tell these people what's getting ready to come on? I forgot what she tells them, but they can all tell that something's happening, right? And I thought like it hit me like how prepared they were, and just thinking about what it was like to live in these times, to where it was like, hey, something's happening, right?
Drawers.
And yeah, like they start getting the guns, things like that. It's like you just like this life of like, hey, you're living everyday life, you've got something, but like always realizing that you are an incident, right? A coin flip away from just all hell breaking loose, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things about this time period. Like there were so many white people in the country who, like, all of these black veterans had come back from World War I, having gotten out of the country, having fought for freedom, having been trained and given command of their own units and all of these things, and they come back and like their actual legal documents where people are talking about these Negroes, they're coming back and they're feeling a little bit too high and mighty, and they think they're something now, and we got to make sure to put them in their place. And so that was one of the real rubbing points with why white Tulsa wanted so badly to have a reason to go into the area and wipe everybody out. But it's also why so many black families in that area had an arsenal in their house, because they had come back from war. They knew how to organize, they knew how to fight. But I think I saw something that said they were outnumbered 25-1 in Tulsa, and that's why 300 black people were killed, and just the whole area was wiped out, like 1,000 homes, 2 movie theaters, just craziness. So
yeah, it was it was definitely tense, and I noticed that. So the grandmother, Dora's mother, as soon as Letty comes in, right, automatically she on track. Right? She like
the camera. I knew that's why she was gonna know. I don't know if you look for stuff like that, but I knew that's who was gonna be who found her, because they went straight to Letty's shoes as soon as she walked in.
Well, it was just, I saw her look at her shoes, but like she never disconnected eye contact with Letty. Like like she, like, it's like you go back and watch it, she's watching Letty. Everybody's talking, looking at her. Oh, what are we gonna do? She ain't doing none of that. She's staring right at Letty, like,
you done came from one of the universes.
Right. And again, and so I immediately thought that it was like, okay, number one, she knows the book, she knows about the book. And we said it before in one of the episodes, it's like everybody in this series, when you've touched or about magic, they just kind of sense when it's around there. And I think more than ever, more so than the shoes, I think when Letty walked in, she knew, she was like, this girl been touched. Like something that she's not, she's just not normal. Like she already kind of knew. And which of course we find out, a little bit later as things start to go down. The riots are happening. The house is starting to burn. Letty's going around the house trying to find the book, and so the grandmother comes in and says, "What are you looking for?" They kind of have their confrontation, and Letty explains to her everything that's going on, right? That she came in the future, she's having six baby, all these things or whatever. They need the book of names, and the grandmother actually, finds the book, gives it to her, and realizes like this is, part of what has to happen. Which when I was first watching this, I was just kind of like this. And again, I know the fast-paced nature of the show, but I felt like I was like, Letty didn't say a whole lot to convince this woman, right? Again, which I was coming back to, I was assuming she was leaning on something with the magic that was telling her, like, this is kind of what needs to happen, type of thing.
She knew about her family birthmark.
That's true.
That was the thing that completely swayed her to, what you're talking about. You just drew the birthmark that's on my shoulder, and you're saying you're from the future carrying my great grandson, so it was, the birthmark was kind of the key to it all.
Yeah. Good point. I forgot about that. So we come from there. Letty has the book, and then in this, very kind of touching scene, right as she passes the book, everything starts to burn around her. Letty's still got her invulnerability, so she's protected. The grandmother just literally burns there in front of Letty, and then we see this scene of Letty just kind of walking through the city as it's burning, right? And we see the background of everything kind of burning down. You see the one thing for people that haven't, if you've never looked up and researched and read about, Tulsa, one of the other things that happened was the local, what do you call them? The guys had to take the planes and do pesticide or whatever, but they took planes, firebombed the city. So you see this down the main street. You see Letty walking down. You see them dropping the firebombs and just kind of Letty walking through everything. Another classic kind of Letty slow-mo scene, and just the determination on her face. And then the other thing we see is Montrose has made it back to the hotel, and he's watching this. Right? So he's watching, not only reliving this moment of what happened, but then watching Letty kind of walk through this. And there was something, to me, the symbolism that I immediately saw, this whole walking through fire, right? Has been a pattern, throughout here, right? We kept seeing Tick, run into the house through fire. His ancestor Hannah, running through the fire. Letty, having dreams about running through the fire, and then Letty literally going through the fire. And again, I tie it back to what I was saying. Like, it's been this call out, that I felt like to Black America, this entire thing, like walking through the fire, like just an awakening of people to like listen, like see the things that's going on, know that there's fire, and you got to walk through it, right? So I thought that scene was iconic.
Well, and then Montrose, I thought it was cool that they had Montrose do the calling out some of the real people that lost their lives, the first doctor, and all that. That was nice.
Yeah, and like another researcher's dream, because everybody that he mentioned, you can go out and you can find, like Erica said, it was all real. There have been lots of posts about, showing everybody, like, look them up, people. The show is educating you too.
So we end with them making it back, going back through the portal. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember much towards the end of it.
Well, is now Storm from X-Men. That's
with blue.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tick goes through and just pumps up Hippolyta to hold it, hold the portal even longer. Her hair turns blue. She turns into Storm. They come through. They have the book, and I'm pretty sure that's it for so much.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we get to the season finale, and so now it is all about to hit the fan, as they say. Come back with the book. Dee is still first kind of going through it. She's reverted back to the topsy bopsy character, whatever. As the person starting to take hold. That's really weird. All right, hold on, folks. A couple of technical difficulties. And come back. All right. Nope. Still got the crazy robot. All right, so what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break here. We're going to pause the stream, come right back. Let me reconnect and fix the audio problem, and we're going to go all into the season now. We will be right back. We're back. So now to wrap up the actual season finale, this actually worked out really well that we could do it in 2 separate episodes. So if you're watching this, like, you can take a nice little break, hear all about episode 9. Now you're back, and you can hear about episode 10. I keep saying episode 10. Is it the 10th episode?
Yeah, it was 10. So. Yeah.
Okay. We'll make sure it was the 10th episode. Season finale. So, yes. Obviously, I'm sad that it's over, that they ended it, but I'm happy that they at least filled in some holes. Still left some stuff out there that's vague, which is nice. I'm like, you can't, answer everything, but I thought they did a good job of kind of, tying off all the loose ends. So we start out with, Letty, Tick, Hippolyta, Montrose coming back with a book, right? So now we got to save Dee. They have the book of names. They go to open it to try and find a spell to cure Dee, and immediately after opening it, Atticus passes out, and then Letty passes out. And so they are transported to, which I thought was very interesting, 2 different places. Atticus goes to, the scene of the burning house, and he's running out with Hannah. And then Letty goes back to the grandmother, who she got the book from, in the burning building, to learn about, what the book is. And I feel like they were really there to really learn and master the language of Adam, because I know Tick had figured some stuff out, but when I tell you, when they came back from this bad boy fluent.
You want to talk about the actors being awesome. Them jokers, like, they must have some language classes.
Yeah.
It sounded great.
Yeah. So we see them, so we see Tick and Letty, and I thought it was very interesting that they both had, and the grandmother actually says it, that they both had burdens to go and bear, and each of them needed to go and kind of learn about their burdens from different people that they were connected to, right? So for Tick, it was his ancestor Hannah, because this is where it all started, and his mom. And for Letty, it was this grandmother who she made this connection with by going back to Tulsa to go and get the book. Same kind of thing. Let's start with we'll start with Tick. So Tick meets Hannah finally, right?
One thought that I just had, speaking about the bond between Letty and Dora's mother, realizing that Tick was always the mysterious stranger that showed up and swinging the bat like Jackie Robinson. Doesn't that also mean that Letty was always there holding her hand while the whole house burned with them in it? Like, just kind of that thought. I'd been thinking, man, how rough to have to stand there and watch this happen and not be able to do anything about it. But then just as you were speaking, literally it hit me that she was there. She was there the whole time. Like, she was always there. And just that's one of those time travel paradox situations that it's, well, how did it happen the first time if it always happened that way? And I don't know. So that made me a little bit, a little bit. Apparently I'm speaking too louder than normal. Just that bittersweet realization that she never died alone. Letty was always there.
Yeah.
That's another thought.
Yeah, that's deep, man. Because it also goes to this connection that Letty and that grandmother had, because I felt like she in a lot in this episode that she's trying to tell Letty, like, you have to become me, right? Like, you are next. Like, you have to carry this on, right? And it becomes, to me, very clear when she's telling her something. I can't remember the words that she's trying to tell her, but Letty goes, "But Tick," and then the grandmother finishes, "has his own burden." Right? Like, this is yours. It was that thing of like, and this kind of came to me too, like, Letty's been searching for this understanding of family and what it means. And this is it. Like, and the reason why you've never found it where you've been looking is because you were destined to take this path and be the branch that connects this family. Right.
Well, and even this whole monologue about family not being an obligation, but family is, I don't know if she said is who you choose, but just that what family is not an obligation. It's this thing. And so I would want to go back and listen to that, because it was definitely a profound moment. And I mean, just this whole episode in particular with this part and the callback to being in connection with our ancestors is huge. Just, because the Christianity was the whole, I mean, that was something introduced after slavery. And so just this callback to like, this is what we do, that was cool to have them manifest that in the episode.
Oh, and we didn't talk in the last episode about, I know I'm going backwards for just a second, but the poem that's being spoken as the Tulsa massacre unfolds. I looked it up and found it, and then I've seen it in a couple places. Sonia Sanchez, African American poet, and I went back and I reread it and I listened to her read it, and just the music that she infused her poetry with, and the fact that the whole thing is about the fire, and to connect with Hannah's thoughts about the fire in this episode, and like you were saying, Letty having to pass through all of the fire that she did, just the fire of Black people in America, the fire of creativity, the fire of rebirth, just all of the poem is incredible to go back and read again. And so just to kind of bring that connection from the end of that episode and the tragedy unfolding there, and then the beauty that is kind of the whole idea of a phoenix being reborn from its own ashes. I don't know, just wanted to bring that up real quick.
What? And I'm glad you did, because I didn't, I couldn't remember, right? We've said it so many times, right? Everything in this show is all for a reason. It's handpicked. So if there's a song, if there's a poem, like it's literally, it's part of the scene, which, and I'm pretty sure they do this in all movies and stuff like that, but I've just never seen it done like this, right? To where it's like intentional. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, there's like, we got to pick this because we're going to build the scene to this. It's so I've never seen it done like this. So kudos to production team for that. But the fire thing is important too, because I think it's, and maybe it's the way that it was edited, and so the way we saw it, but like, it starts with Hannah explaining to Tick what this fire is. and her walking him through it and understanding, like Erica, you had touched on, right, when she was talking about how, actually, let me back up. So when the grandmother is explaining to Letty what the place is, and how Hannah thought it was hell because it was fire, and she thought she was trapped there, and it wasn't. It was this place that she had created, for the ancestors, so that way that they could communicate, right? Something that they could have and hold, because she took this, she took this power that she didn't know what it was, and all she wanted to do was save her and her baby, right? And it goes from that to understanding that she took this power, and now was able to, kind of going back to manifestation, right? She was able to manifest these things, understanding more about this power that she had. So, as Letty, or the grandmother's kind of explaining that to Letty, we go back to Tick and Hannah's walking him through and explaining to him that fire was her rage. And when she understands that she could tame it and control it, where she goes to grab the ball of fire, right, and then hands it over, right? And so it's this, to me, it's this whole thing of all of this, the tragedy, the monsters of it. And this is maybe like a little meta. This could be the hydrocodone talking, but who knows? But all of this, the tragedy, the monsters, the racism, like all of this is the fire, right? And so it either consumes you, right? Because it adds to you add to it all the stuff that you have, or you learn to understand what it is and control it and use it. And then the beautiful thing that I thought was when she goes that she didn't say curse, but this is how I said it, but it's not a curse, but it is something you control, and it's a gift that I can now pass on, right? And it was so beautiful to me to watch these two kind of be in this place that was created by their ancestors for them, to learn about this power, this gift that they now had, and Tick had been presented to Tick, and now that Letty, was a part of. And it, to me, was beautiful because they had been building Tick and Letty, kind of going back and forth about this, right? About, Letty didn't trust the magic, and it's this and it's that or whatever. And Tick's like, no, we got to use it or whatever. And so now you have them both in this place that was created by this magic, and learning the truth, right? And learning from, the generations behind them and teaching them. So it was, I don't know. I loved that opening scene. The grandmother teaching, Letty, again, like all about the Book of Adam and these different spells and all this stuff or whatever. And so it was, I don't know, it was touching to me. And it also, like, when they came back, it made me think, and Hippolyta kind of hinted, or not hinted, but she told this later, like, or maybe she said in the last episode, that time is different. Like, she had been gone for hundreds of years, or she had experienced hundreds of years, but however, whatever. I really feel like Tick and Letty were there a lot longer than what it was perceived as they were passed out.
Yeah.
Because, like, as soon as Letty comes back, she goes, I need a pen and paper. Like, their command of languages and what they needed to do, it could just be straight determination because they know they had to do it. But I don't know. I just felt like,
yeah,
something about me in those scenes felt like they were there to learn, and they were there for a long time, is basically what I took away.
Well, and then the visit for Tick switches from Hannah to Dora, right? Mm-hmm. And you have that whole kind of just incredibly revealing conversation about choice, right? About how, this is what's going to happen. And it's always going to happen, no matter how much we fool ourselves that we have a choice. And that's an interesting idea. It's that whole, like, fate versus free will fight that we see throughout literature, throughout mythology, just throughout life, whatever. Are we agents of will, able to choose what happens to us, or are we creatures of fate that just, despite our best efforts and our deepest desires, we play things out the way they're going to play out?
Yeah. So when she tells Tick, like, if we're not walking down an altar as sacrifices, then what's our purpose? And I probably butchered that, but y'all know.
No,
that
that's
was
pretty
basically
close.
it, yeah.
I don't like that line.
Yeah.
So okay, I want to hear your thoughts on that, because I what do you think she was referring to?
I don't know. Like, I don't know, because all I heard was kind of like that thing where your ancestors, your elders want to tell you that you have to sacrifice and your life for stuff. And it's just like, do you? And I don't know. But then, I don't know. I didn't like it when she said it at all. But I do think it's beautiful that Tick had to do that for everything to continue on. I mean, I guess there's always going to be death, there's a life cycle. But I did not like it when she said it.
Well, and I'm kind of like, a lot of times books that I've read that deal with that question, the you want to kind of believe that your choices are your own, right? You want to kind of believe that what you think and feel, that's because that's what you're choosing, and not because it's just written in the stars or whatever. Or at least I do. I like to think that, we choose, by and large, what happens to us. Some of it's out of our hands, but we choose how we respond to it, whatever. And so, yeah, just kind of, it was interesting to me how much this came down on the side of destiny, and nothing that you do will change the outcome.
And maybe it's just, maybe I can still be like, whatever, grandma or mama, but at the same time, it was comforting to him.
Right.
And maybe that's the only purpose it served, was to just kind of get him ready.
Yeah. So because they still never answered whose son he was. I guess it's just us to pick. But I felt like, because she talked about her, George, and Montrose, and she was like,
What they did, though.
Yeah.
I even thought he might have said something real quick, like, it's in episode 9, wherever it is.
Yeah, I thought they made it pretty clear. Montrose comes out and tells him at the beginning of episode 9, because that was another one of those, like,
he said you might not. He said you might be George's son. He never said you are.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Well, but that might be where the truth lies. I don't know what the technology was at that time. So, right, like, it's.
Well, and Laura even mentions this is how it was supposed to be. It was always the 3 of us.
Right.
Good. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So I get where I was going with that. When she was talking about the 3 of them, she was like both of them were a part of my soul. Like, she was talking about the whole choice thing, and like, so I felt like that line was to comfort him, but trying to draw a comparison of, I guess she felt like her sacrifice was this whole thing between George and Montrose and Tick, in order for Tick to become the man that he was supposed to become, so that way he could then be who he is and lead him to where he is to go make this sacrifice. And so that's kind of where I took it. But I don't know. I thought it was a very interesting line. I didn't particularly care for it either. I didn't have as strong as reaction as Erica did, but I was just kind of like, well, no, like, because I thought that, then I was like, so wait a minute, like, we trying to say black people are supposed to be sacrificed? Like, I was like, I was a little, but again, I did like the fact that he was able to get that connection, and the two of them, then walk into the room with Letty and the grandmother, just like diligently studying all this stuff or whatever, and then they, which I thought was interesting, they perform the spell in this place that they are to save Dee, and then they come back.
Yeah.
And so we'll probably jump around a little bit, pieces here and there, but like, I thought it was interesting that it doesn't save Dee's arm. I didn't know. I still don't understand why. I get why, especially at the end.
Yeah, I wonder if that was just one of those things where that's how we get the arm from was it in one of the comics? Is that where we saw that arm?
No, so she is the one that pushes Tick back through the portal. When Tick goes to the future, he says, "All I know is somebody gave me this book and had a robotic arm at the hood and pushed me back through." It was D.
Yeah. So I knew we had either heard it or seen this arm, because when I saw it at the end, I was like, "Oh, she's the arm." So I don't know if it maybe was just a means to get her the arm.
And that may just all there be to it, right? Is the fact that they needed to be able to give her this arm. So they come back. Tick and Letty now have the master plan. They know what they need to do. Hannah informs them of this spell that they can do that's going to make this big change, so they can hijack Christina's whole thing. So they put together this master plan. Montrose is not going along with it because it seems like for the first time in his life, he actually wants to be a father. It's like, no, I don't want to sacrifice Tick. Tick basically lies to him because it was clear it was a lie. That it's like, no, it's like a different reality, future type thing.
Yeah.
But to get him to go along with it, I will say this, and I do not know why. This is probably me triggering some own internal issues that I have with this, but I love the fact that they addressed Hippolyta in D, and this kind of anger from D, like, yo, you left me. Like, and then Hippolyta go, oh, but I was going this or whatever. And I love that D came back. It's like, I don't want to hear about what you would have done. Like,
but you know what I thought was interesting about that? As a mother, like, I liked it, but I was pissed off too. I was like, see, this is why Hippolyta kept her mouth shut all those years, because she knew if she went off and did what would make her happy, is that she would get a bunch of crappy guilt for it when she came back. So I'm glad that they came back with the follow-up conversation, right. Like, here's what time is. And that's where you're remembering her talking about what time was. And, I love you, and I'm going to do everything I can to make up for the fact that I wasn't here. And because of what I know about time, this too shall pass. And, not in a mean way, but you'll get over it. Because I did it for the betterment of both of us.
Right. No, look, I love that part too, because it was also like, I think it also started this, which if they do a season 2 or some kind of adaptation, like this closer connection between D and Hippolyta, like realizing that D is ready to see and accept all of this, right? Like, but no, I just thought it was, I don't know. I love that. I thought it was healthy because it was, again, me projecting because I was pissed at Hippolyta, like, yo, like, why ain't you back? Like, you got all these powers, you do all this stuff or whatever. Like, baby girl getting sliced up. Where you at? But I think, I don't know. I just thought it was good to see, like, on screen the way they played it out. And then, you see Hippolyta explain time to her and all that. And I took the whole, like, this too shall pass thing is like, you will, I don't know. I kind of took it a step further is like, D will begin to understand, like, this now starts the process of Hippolyta explaining to D truly how time works. And she will, with whatever gift that she has, with her ability to see things and already kind of manifest things, that she will begin to see time in the same way that Hippolyta sees time. Right. So I don't know. I thought that was great. I love the fact that they addressed it. And I don't know, I felt like when she took her into the room to go show her, I get that it was part of what she showed her was put the arm on her. But I feel like there was something else there as well.
Yeah.
Because I heard sounds that sounded like a portal. It sounded like to me that she had built another portal on her own or whatever. So again, I just think this, I don't know, I could see a future where, and it'd be great for the spinoff series where D is just, she becomes a badass and she just flips through time and all this stuff or whatever and just kind of does her thing.
Well, the comic that Hippolyta puts under her door, it's the two of them on the cover.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Hippolyta in the blue hair and D with the arm.
I didn't even catch that.
Yep.
I was trying to read the title of it. I didn't look at the picture.
No, that's why she was. That's what intrigued her. Like, how did you learn how to draw this? And then that's when she took her down the hall and showed her.
Yeah,
Okay, nice. They got to do more. Please do more with this.
with the ending of it, the last scene, it's like
that was a setup.
There's got to be, there's got to be season 2, because I have a whole lot of questions about that last scene. I have a lot of questions, period, but especially that
last. Okay, so the next part, let's go ahead and talk about Ruby.
I was about to say, it's gotta be Ruby.
I'm disappointed in Ruby, and I don't know.
So timeline question first.
Okay.
If I got this straight. At the cemetery, that was still Ruby.
That was still Ruby.
Yes.
That was still Ruby.
That was still Ruby. Then she goes back, because even though she does that thing where to Letty's face, she wants to be all like badass about it. She's like, I'm gonna help my sister. Okay. That's all I wanted to check first.
Yeah.
So we see, Ruby, Christina, Ruby and Letty end up meeting at their mom's grave at the cemetery. Letty lets Ruby know all about Christina's plan and their plan of what they're going to do, which immediately I was like, why? Because I felt like this whole role of like Letty, like desperately again wanting to have the sisterly connection with Ruby, and Ruby just was never going to have it. Like Ruby just had this resentment from her from jump, and it was just never going to happen. And she had her reasons, right? But so she explains to her what's going on, tells her about the book, asks her to kind of go and get, some kind of a sample of Christina's blood, things of that, whatever. I knew at that point that Ruby was going to double cross them. I wasn't expecting Ruby to die, but I was expecting Ruby to go back and tell Christina and try and whatever she was planning on doing. I picked up on the part that,
but she did. She just got caught, still thinking she was still. Yeah.
So when she goes back to Christina, and Christina starts explaining to her what she's doing, and Christina explains to her about how she made William's spell or whatever. She had to combine like her blood, hair, and nails, something with his blood or something like that or whatever. I saw Ruby's face when she said that, so I automatically knew that she was going to try that, right? And then Ruby was like, because Christina asked her a question, and Ruby was like, "Oh, I was trying to remember how you got that from me," and then I remembered how, yada yada yada, whatever. I was like, "Okay, yeah, that was a softball attempt at trying to set this up," but okay. What isn't very clear is how. What isn't very clear is how Letty survives at the end, but it's somehow connected to Ruby. Because Christina explains that in order to do that potion or that spell, like the person technically has to be put in a comatose state. Mm-hmm. So actually, I'm going to say that Ruby may not be dead. She may have just knocked her out.
Yeah, either that or she was using it as a one-time transformation. And because that's the thing, she has to keep William alive to keep producing the potion. But if she only needed Ruby for that one
time,
thing, then she says outright, no, she begged me not to hurt you, and then I killed her, basically.
Right. Yeah. So
speaking of the Letty's mark, like the whole time, as soon as Christina removed it, I'm like, they have the book.
Right.
Why don't they put it back on? Like I didn't understand that piece of, oh well, okay, Christina took the invulnerability away, but that should be in the book. They should know how to put it back. And so, yeah, like Erica and I both knew. I mean, it was shocking what happened to Letty, but we both knew this is not.
Yeah.
That's not it.
Right. And so when she comes back, Ruby comes back, gives Letty the vial or whatever, they hop in a car. So my mom was the first one who picked it up that it wasn't Ruby.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so it didn't hit me at that point. I was very surprised to realize, oh, she got in the car with him. But then I said to Erica, that Shaboom Shaboom song, that is the song playing in episode 1 when Tick is on the bus. And then the bus breaks down. Okay. And then when we first meet Ruby, when she's on stage at the party singing the songs, and then Letty comes up and Ruby is asking for requests, and she's like, and don't give me none of that shaboom shaboomy something, and just kind of blows it off as like, that's garbage. It's crap. It's not music. And so that was one of those things where I'm like, okay, so she's singing the song and enjoying it, but Ruby, from all indications, hated that song.
Right. So I didn't even pick up on that. So Eric, I was telling Jeremy, my mom was the first one. Like, now she came in on Lovecraft late. She was just watching because me and Oz were watching it. But like when Ruby appeared, when they was getting ready to go into the car, my mom said it. Then she goes, "It's not Ruby." My mom knew off the gate. She was like, "That's not Ruby."
Yeah.
She ain't been right this whole time. It ain't her.
And I thought it was her, but like Christina had just turned her, like she was going to betray them, right? So I was like waiting for the okie doke, and then, I was late on this when I found out when they were just kind of in the, wherever they were in this little tower thing, or whatever. Which they never explained that part either.
The tower that Montrose was imprisoned under.
Yeah, but I don't like what.
Oh, yeah. So I think they were marking it to trap Christina there. Like they were, those are a lot of other unanswered questions. Like why was Montrose spreading the salt in the woods? Why were they up in the tower drawing the symbols? What was Gia doing? I guess Gia and Montrose and Hippolyta marking the bridge. Like we never got to see all of that play out. Yeah, because of Christina being Ruby.
Yeah. So anyway, so I knew then that it wasn't that was Christina, and so their interesting little fight that they have there.
Interesting little fight. That fight scene was like, I mean, good gracious alive. I'm clutching my pearls.
I guess because this has been brewing since like the first episode, the first time that Letty and Ruby see each other. This fight has been brewing, like so, which is interesting that it's not
really her.
I know that's what I was saying. It's interesting that it's not even really Ruby, but I'm just like, if it was Ruby, it probably still would have been the same thing. Like, they just they just didn't like each other. Period. But I don't know. Did you guys notice that Christina hit her,
gave her the
several times in the stomach?
Yeah.
Which I thought was like, that's just evil.
She's trying to kill the bloodline. She's trying to make sure it don't go nowhere.
Right. So we have this scene. Christina tosses Letty out of the tower.
I was mad.
Appears to die. Obviously, I'm looking at this like, ain't no fucking way, but damn. Like, and so now we're gonna so if you guys are watching, we're gonna jump ahead and go a little crazy and apologize, but I think it's like it's the way they did this. I don't know a better way to do this. But so when we get to Letty, what I don't like what they did with this is they have Gia. So at the end, as Atticus is dying and they're trying to complete this Grandmaster scheme here, Gia becomes key because she has to actually go into the darkness to then connect the two of their bodies. And obviously when she does that, Gia can go in and connect with people's souls and see all this stuff, whatever. So we see kind of the details of the plan through flashbacks through both Christina and Tick. So what I don't understand is what I saw is I need to go back and watch it again. I don't understand how Letty got the invulnerability spell. It looked to me like Ruby cast it.
So that's what my initial thought was like, okay, the flash shows Ruby saying something, so maybe Ruby did it. But then something got me to thinking, was it grandma when they were in the realm? Like, was it the great grandma? Like, those are my two thoughts. But when I saw Ruby's flash, whatever they had Ruby doing, I was like, Ruby did it. But I don't know when she would have done it though.
Yeah, I don't know if I blinked at that point or what, but I missed seeing what you saw, so I'm no help at all.
Yeah, it was it was interesting because and the other thing is the only way that would have happened, Christina would have had to seen Ruby do it, right? Because that's how Gia's powers work. I don't know. It was really weird.
My thing was, even though I feel like Ruby, that flash shows that Ruby did it, my thing was, but when? Because you have to be with the person to say the thing. So they didn't show it together any other time.
Well, and it was a different symbol.
Yes.
Was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I'm thinking back. I was like, well, maybe the ancestors did that when they were out. So yeah, it'll be interesting what we all see when we go back and look at it.
Yeah. So we have that scene. We have. We also see during these flashbacks, Tick introduces D to his protector monster, and kind of seems like hands off the protection from him to D.
So now she's got a robotic arm and a pet monster that will do her bidding.
Right.
She's gonna be hardcore when the sequel comes out.
I mean, was she like 12 years old or whatever? Like 12 years old, robotic arm, and a killer monster as a pet. Like, yeah, say something to her. It's cool. Just say something. Piss her off one day. Oh, okay, that's cool. No, we cool. Cool. Yeah. Got you. Good luck walking home. No, that's all I'm saying. So we see that part. We see that Tick writes Montrose a letter. And there's something else that I'm missing in there. We see the whole baptism thing, which I don't understand. That to me was a big question. Like, what was the point in that? So Tick and Letty go off and get baptized. It's something that Letty wanted for them to do.
I just really think she really thought, well, now that I don't have invulnerability, I finally know that God is in me and we need to get baptized for protection, which to me just felt like a little uber religious all of a sudden after
That's how
nothing.
It was really weird. And then like what we see is Atticus's view, because Letty baptizes him. So we see Atticus looking up through the water at Letty. So yeah, I don't. That part was interesting to me. I didn't understand how that played in or what it, if it did or whatever. So kind of rewinding back a little bit. So Letty's been thrown through Christina. Now that we know Christina knows this whole time, she has the people go capture Montrose and Hippolyta. Dee is in the car reading the Lovecraft Country book. She's attacked by one of the regular monsters, but her now new pet monster comes to her rescue. And we go towards this altar scene where Christina is now Christina. Has the book of names, so Atticus knows that something's gone wrong. That she's got the book of names, found out what's going on. Basically tells Tick that she knows they're trying to sabotage her, hooks him up, does her incantation, slices him open. Yeah. Which, I mean, I get it, but look, with them slices, ain't no way he would have lasted that long. But anyway, does the incantation or whatever to just kind of get this immortality. During that time is when we find out Letty's alive. She comes back. Tick sees Letty, Letty tells Tick that she loves him, and then Tick just kind of, it's like he was holding on for that, and then he just kind of lets go. At that point, Christina gets her immortality, but then Letty stabs her and then starts the incantation what they were doing to kind of hijack this whole thing. And I realized I forgot one very important part back at the beginning. So quick pause, we're going to go back. The other thing that they did when they found out the plan was they had to go and collect, as part of this plan, go get pieces of Titus Braithwaite, Christina Braithwaite. So to get Titus, they went back to the elevator, went back to the underground, went back to the place that they had found, and summoned Titus Braithwaite. And they did this by calling upon their ancestors. So it was Tick's grandmother and Hannah to call Titus and summon him there to get a piece of him, to get a piece of his flesh. They do that, permanent flesh. He kind of gets away for a little bit to kind of warn Christina. But I thought that it was, again, going back to the scene at the basement of the house where it was, again, calling upon the ancestors to help, but this time it was like a formal type of thing. So I don't know. It was very, very cool, very kind of powerful scene. And then even though we don't know what they were saying, I love the fact that as it ends, they speak to each one of them in the language of Adam before they disappear. I thought that was pretty cool. They kind of leave it up to you to interpret it. I just kind of took it as they were, again, reading their body language and the way they're saying it, like saying their thank yous, and also kind of like releasing them to let them go back or whatever. So,
nice.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Tick wasn't able to finish to send his mom back, and Letty had to do it, and that was a touching moment. And that was where you got real kind of emotional because of just the generations of women represented in that room, and just that, I guess, for lack of a better term, that black girl magic that was there, and just it was awesome.
And I think it goes back to that theme of like the grandmother trying to tell Letty, like, this is your family now. Like this is what you were destined to become. And this is, to me, it was like, this is why you never fit in. This is why you don't get along with Ruby. This is why you were just kind of fighting the world. Like, you were looking for this. And now, like, you have it. You have all of it. And you have access to all of this. And into a way that it was never about Tick. It's really been about her. Like, she's going to be the one to birth the next one in the bloodline. But now it's, I don't know, she kind of becomes this new kind of anchor for this next generation to come along.
Well, that to me has been kind of the thing I've been going back and forth with the whole first season is Tick really the lead character, or is Letty? I
think it's Letty.
Yeah, and I have for a while felt like, I think we need to be following her and what's happening to her and keeping up with that. Yeah.
So yes, we come back. We're at the end of the scene. Christina's done her little immortal spell or whatever. Letty's now casting her spell to, which we come to find out is to bind her from magic. And Christina's like, it's not going to work. This kind of dark spirit shape kind of goes towards the moon and is kind of taking over Tick. And that's when Gia kind of gets her flashback from the shaman saying that you will see many deaths. Like, you have not stepped into the darkness yet, you will see many deaths. And so she realized she has to get, and then Hippolyta says that this spell won't work if they're not connected. And so Gia then steps into the darkness to kind of use her Kumaho foxtails to connect Christina and Tick.
Yeah.
The spell work. And this is how we get access to the flashes and the things that have transpired to kind of fill in some of the details. And so we see that happen. We see the flashes. We come to Christina is buried under some rocks trying to, use these spells. And that's when, Letty just kind of drops the bomb that it's not going to work, because not only has she bound her from magic, they bound all white people from magic. And she was like, magic is ours now. And to me, like, that was, I think, exactly what it was supposed to be, like the final rallying cry, right? I look at Hippolyta's whole journey of naming yourself, right? And the speeches that were given by the warrior about like how, you don't just embrace yourself in what they've given you, right? Like you need to go and take and name who you are. Like, all of these things, it's just been this storylines of Black people to step through this fire, be proud, take what is yours. Like this, there's something in this world that is meant for you and only you, and it's not going to happen unless you go forth and take it, right? And you can get, I could see people, you can go radical with it, you cannot go radical. I've never been a radicalist. I've always just looked at things kind of for what they are, but there's no doubt that there was a very strong rallying cry throughout this entire thing. And that statement to me, it hit me so hard when she was like, magic is ours now, right? And because it's buried in this whole thing of like why I believe this thing is so popular, and we kind of talked about in the beginning, is because most Black people are into sci-fi. The reason why most Black people are into sci-fi, because you look at sci-fi, there's no representation of us whatsoever, right? And so if there's no representation, then you're just not going to, it's not going to be something you're going to be into. And the people that usually were into it, again, don't look like you or things like that. I just, how comic books, man, like the X-Men cartoons, I got into it, right? And so, and I think also timing, I was, late 80s, early 90s. And so luckily there was Black Panther comics, there was Storm, there was at least something. I could imagine if this was like the 50s or 60s and I was in a sci-fi, I wouldn't have seen anything. And so I think all of that this whole thing, right, the whole thing with Lovecraft Country is like to take this guy who was this, huge racist or whatever, and kind of turn this story on its head, where the, protagonists are the same people that he hated, like all these things or whatever. So I think that all just came together very beautifully in the message that they had been trying to send across there. So, I'm careful with it just because I think something is beautifully crafted as this, and something that speaks to, that speaks to people and just says like, it is okay to name who you are and fight for and have something that is yours. But I also see like how people would radicalize it, right, and go a completely different, which I think is ridiculously stupid. But I won't get into all that. But so I thought it was pretty awesome because it kind of sets up this. It sets up huge storylines at this point that you can tell, kind of going forward from here. Like, well, what does that mean? And the things that it affects and going forward. And then finally we see Dee with her, new pet. We gotta come up with a name for this dude.
I don't know. And can I just say that, like, I'm so excited that Christina is dying a slow death. Like, she gets to suffer some. I like it.
It's the death that Cersei deserved, that we never got a chance to see, but we won't go there. But we see Dee, kind of walking. Christina's still there saying, help me, help me. I thought she was going to have her pet dude just like go to town. But she didn't. She just reveals her robotic arm, chokes Christina, and says this line that they still haven't learned, as Christina is asking Dee for help. And Jeremy, I'll let you go in just a second. I want to go back to one thing that I thought was also very interesting. So when Christina finds out about the Book of Names, she comes to confront them back at the garage and basically said, this has never been about generational hate. Like, it's not like that. This isn't personal. And then Montrose is like, you're trying to kill my son. I don't understand how it's really not personal. But it was just the way that, like, you saw like the depths of Christina, to where it was just like, the fact that you don't even see this as personal or anything, it's like, it's just, there's something I want and you have it. So that's not personal. I'm just supposed to get what I want and you have what I need. So I'm going to get it from you, type of thing. Like, just that entire, attitude to the privilege and everything
Entitlement.
like that, to then go through, which makes, I think, Dee's ending line so much more impactful, right? When she's like, they haven't learned.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's it. We end with the monster howling, a shot of Dee looking like a, new age superhero. And yeah, still left with like tons of questions. We don't know what happened to what was up with old boy in a different skin, and there's just a bunch of stuff out there. The sheriff guy that ended up dying, but he had like the different skin. He had a guy locked up in the thing with his tongue cut out. We don't know what happened to that. What the hell happened to Tree?
he's out there trying to police everybody else's sexuality still, I guess.
I don't think those things tie into the bigger picture.
They don't. So we still don't know why Montrose killed the whole spirit thing. That wasn't even important. So, but you know what? They're not big enough.
Person that they found on the boat.
It's okay.
The male female spirit that told them that Tick had the.
It's okay. I can't. Oh, I got it. I'm with you now. I'm with you now. The spirit. I got it.
Yeah. So that's it. Set up. I think. Look, a perfectly executed season 1. I think they've done more than enough to go for season 2. I could see them. The way this ended to me, I could see them setting this up kind of like American Horror Story, where it's or maybe more like Black Mirror, in that you have seasons in the Lovecraft Country world, but it's not, they don't necessarily connect. Meaning I could see like a season 2 coming out, and maybe it's in the future and, generations later, and it's dealing with something different, and we have references to all these other characters.
Yeah, I'm interested from the aspect of, like you were saying, not having the representation in this genre. This is not a genre that I would have been excited about without all of the Black history along with it. And so I see the ending and I go, oh no, am I going to like season 2 as much as I like season 1? But I would have never picked it anyway. So, I mean, I'll watch it, but.
And with that revelation, there's tons of things they can do with season 2 now too, to say that, there's this, a friend of mine was telling me about this book, and I don't know the name of it. So, but in the book, it talks about how they found out that women have like these powers and that only women have them. And so this book covers like generations of what happens is the women find out they have powers. And so then women take control, and then like it becomes this thing where, whatever, over the years, you just see that you like, they try this, women are so much better than men and they would handle things better, but then the women kind of get power drunk and they kind of do all the things. And so then it's like, it ends up generations later to where people are like, well, if men were in charge, they would never do this because women didn't do this, and it was whatever. It's like, so it's the same conversations like we have now, but it's different. So again, where I'm going with this, I can see them kind of doing the same thing with, okay, you can go whatever, hundreds of years, and Black people want people to have access to magic. And so now you have all these things. And so what type of things do you see play out over the generations, right? A lot of different ways they can go with it. They've clearly got some awesome storytellers, so who knows, but great show. Great show. There's not enough really else that I can say about it. I thought it was executed really well for 10 episodes.
Good.
Hey, Game of Thrones writers, this is how you do it. Sorry. I know you guys are probably getting drugged ever since like the last season, but that right there, like that's how you lay out and finish the season, right? You leave some cliffhangers and stuff flaming out. That's cool. But they closed every single important loophole that I think they had to. And it was awesome. I'm sad to see it go. HBO will now be canceled, but
At least until Watchmen season 2 comes out, or Insecure season 5, right?
Insecure actually did pop into my brain when you said having a series have songs match so perfectly, and I'm like, I don't know though. Insecure, they line that thing up.
They do. I think it's
in a different way, but for
right.
Like, yeah, I listen to every song when they play a song on Insecure.
The one that stood out to me the most was when Maya and Lawrence, or not Maya, when Lawrence and he started talking, they played Maya Case of the X.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, that was perfect. But no, good call out. Good call out. Insecure does a good job with their soundtrack. But yeah, so I mean, you guys have any other closing thoughts? I don't want to continue to ramble on.
I just don't know what the heck I'm going to do on Sundays at 9 now. I don't know. I think we did decide that we're going to go back to Walking Dead and see how that ends. But
I haven't seen that in years. I don't even know.
We got so pissed about it.
We stopped several seasons ago.
But yeah, I don't know.
There's a lot of good stuff to watch.
We'll see. We are going to watch episode 10 again, though. I feel like watch one for sure.
The whole season, episodes 1 through 10. Yeah.
I probably will too. I think it's crazy, like with so every other pain medication I take, like one puts me to sleep, the other one keeps me up. It's so weird. I don't know. It has a weird effect. So it's like every other dose. It's like this one's gonna make me sleepy. This one's gonna keep me up. Clearly, this is the one that's going to keep me up because I am nowhere near tired right now. So I'll probably watch episode 10 again and some other stuff. But it has been an absolute blast, everybody, going through this season with you all. Thanks you so much for watching, your comments, your engagement. Let us know what you thought about it in the comments. Feel free to drop us a line or on the Facebook page on the corner. Happy to always talk about it. And if there's another show that you see that you're like, hey, I would just love to see Jeremy, Eric, and Dave talk about this one, hit us up. Let us know. We'll look at it. Can't promise you that we'll actually do it, but
we have to do this for Insecure next time.
Yeah, Insecure watch party. Yeah,
that's the automatic.
Yeah. Oh, we'll set up an Insecure watch party. Yeah, we'll definitely do that one. We'll build that one up. There's a lot of stuff we can do with that one. I think it was going to be cool because it's got a bigger following, right? And I mean, there's so much with Insecure. So, all right, there it is. All right. Until next time, everybody stay safe.